For the next part of your assignment for today, we're going to be working on replacing colors and diving into editing the image a little bit further. So we'll be using our color replacement tool, adjusting the hue and saturation. We'll also be adjusting the saturation using a sponge tool and doing a little bit of photo repair. So at this point, we are still in section 4A, but we are starting under replacing colors in an image, and we're starting on step 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my view, and I'm going to zoom in on the child's cap so that it's very, very clear to us. And we can see that as I zoom in, we can see the pixels on my screen. At this point, we're going to use our color replacement tool, which is hidden behind our brush tool. So we're going to come over to our left toolbar, select our brush tool, click and drag, and select our color replacement tool. Now, at this point, we're going to click the foreground color swatch in the color picker and select a color green. So the foreground is the box in the front. I'm going to use a fairly bright green so you can see it easily. From here, I want you to adjust these pixels to about 15. We can make that smaller and larger as we get into the details. I want the hardness to be at about 40%. So you can use your slider or again, type it in. And I'm going to put our spacing at 25%. From here, we're going to move over to the mode, which is right next to your pixel selection. You can see you can click hue, saturation, color, or luminosity. For this aspect, I just want you to click on hue. And I want you to make sure that find edges are selected under your limits, and your anti-alias is also selected. And we're just going to also select this tolerance to 32%. And all of this can be found in this upper left-hand corner of your toolbar. Now, quite simply, we can begin painting in the middle of the hat and paint out towards the edges. And we can also choose a smaller brush if we would like to kind of get into some of those finer pixels. So you can click or you can click and drag. I'm going to decrease mine a little bit and try to select all of these pink pixels. If you go a little off of your hat selection, you can make that pixel size even smaller to get into the details of this hat. From here, you can zoom out and take a look at your edited image. And we're going to click Save. So press Control S or Command S, depending on what type of computer you're using. The girls hat to green. We're now going to go in and change the hue and saturation through a hue saturation command method. And for this, I want you to select your magic wand tool. And I want you to set your tolerance again at about a 32. And we're going to go ahead and click right on the girl's hat. And we're going to pick up other areas of the hat by holding down the Shift key. Now, when you get to the outer edges, we zoom in a little bit, you may find it easier to lower this tolerance down in order to get your pixels. So in my instance, the outside of my hat, the color there is very close to the brick, so it's not picking up as easily with a higher tolerance. So you may lower the tolerance, and that's going to help you pick up those extra pixels so you can select the complete hat. Once the hat is selected, we're going to go up to our image button. We're going to go Image, Adjustments, and we're going to go over to Hue Saturation. And a new box should pop up. From here, you can slide the sliders to create any color you want, and we're going to press OK. So again, I encourage you to play around with these, see which color you're looking for. You can make it lighter or darker. And we're going to press OK. From here, we can go ahead and save our file, and you can use your hotkeys and either use Control-S or Command-S. I'm going to deselect these pixels on the hat by hitting Command-D, or if you're on a PC, you would be hitting Control-D. Now I'm going to take a second to zoom out. You can see the full picture. And we're going to start adjusting saturation in a different method using the sponge tool. When you change the saturation of a color, you're essentially adjusting its strength or purity. And the sponge tool is useful for making more subtle changes to specific areas of an image, as opposed to an entire image. From here on, we're going to be using our sponge tool, and we're going to change the saturation of the graffiti. So your sponge tool can be found in your left sidebar, typically under what looks like a teardrop or an eye drop. And it's typically also hidden either behind the dodge tool, which looks like a push pin, or the burn tool. From here, you can select your sponge tool. To use the sponge tool, I want you to set the pixels for this tool to 150, and we're just going to set the hardness at 0. You can go ahead and close this. We're also going to want to check our mode, so we can have a desaturate or a saturate option, which I encourage you to explore. So we're going to click saturate. And we want the flow of our sponge tool to be about 40%. And you can either use the slider or, again, just type in 40%. From here, we're going to drag the sponge tool back and forth over our graffiti. And you're going to see that the saturation of our graffiti is changing, so that purity and strength of our graffiti is changing. The more you drag over an area using the sponge tool, the more saturated the color will become. For this assignment, be careful not to oversaturate the color, but I'm just going to take a second just to show you, and I'll delete it. But if you continue to drag over a certain area, kind of back and forth like we're scrubbing this wall, you can very easily create an extremely saturated section. And I'm just going to Control-Z to demonstrate. From here, once you've kind of saturated your graffiti to a level that you like, you can go ahead and click Save. Control or Command S.